Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at www.audibletrial.com/thenerdcore. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player.
Hello, nerds. You're listening to an episode on the Nerdcore podcast feed. If you're feeling generous, please consider pledging to a tier on our Patreon at patreon.com/thenerdcore. We have tiers as low as $1 per month. Thanks so much, and enjoy the episode.
Hey everyone, before we can get into today's episode, I need to talk to you all about Anchor. Anchor is the easiest way to make a podcast and is the platform I've been using for over 2 years. Anchor is easy because it's free, includes creation tools on your tablet or phone from the get-go, rewards creators with sponsorships with no minimum listenership, and best of all, they distribute your podcast to places like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and many more. So if you want to make a podcast, you should download the Anchor app or visit anchor.fm. Now let's get into today's episode. Hello, you're listening to an episode on the Nerdcore podcast feed. We hope you can visit our page at Patreon at www.patreon.com/nerdcore. They have tiers that start as low as $1, and we hope you can consider pledging to one of those tiers. Enjoy the episode. Welcome back. You're listening to the Nerdy Chicano show, the only show hosted by two Latin lovers themselves. Sadly, one of them is not here, but this is your Nerdy Chicano himself, Raul Alejandro Mendoza, and we are here to bring you the movie club episode, where October, you know what's the deal, guys. Every month, the movie club members, I choose a movie for them, and we review that movie together. Sadly, none of the movie club members are here because they're busy or they're sick. Get better, Ashley. Hope you get better, and I know it sucks being sick. I hate being sick. Remember, you can become a member of the movie club by pledging to our Patreon at $5 a month. You get this awesome treat, and you get to sit here with us and review a movie. But today, I have myself a guest. I'm not doing this alone. Thank God I'm not doing this alone. I have a friend. I have a friend coming over from another podcast. The first ever podcaster on this show, at least. Not on the other shows, but this show. It is our friend Kayla. She is coming from Let the Right Films In. I'm going to go ahead and let her introduce herself.
So, hi. It's my last name is a huge pain, so sorry about that. We should have gone over that before we started recording. I am Kayla St.Onge. I am the co-host of the movie podcast Let the Right Films In. We used to be a podcast about the IMDb 250, but we decided after we went through most of the movies on that list that we liked that we wanted to open it up. And so now we kind of just talk about whatever we like, and what we like mostly are horror movies. So October is a super good month for us.
Yeah. I wanted to get spooky this month because you said, it's spooky season. And then I talk to Kayla every now and then, and I asked her because I'm somebody who wants to get into the horror genre because it seems to me that horror doesn't grab my attention as it should. And it's I loved it. I just watched Halloween this week. I loved it. And she recommended me to watch Hereditary. And if anybody follows me on Letterboxd, they know that I have Hereditary in my number 5 of the year. So I loved Hereditary. So then she said, I think you might like this one too. She recommended It Follows, and voila, here we are going to review this movie. I am a big fan of Kayla's podcast. I've been following it, and it's so much fun. I listen to it. I'm trying to catch up on all the episodes, but that's what happens when I'm late to the party.
Yeah, no worries. I was actually joking with Tyler. I said, I think that Raul is actually our only organic fan, somebody who is not friends with one of us or a friend of a friend. So I feel very honored to be here and to be talking to you about this movie in particular.
Yeah. No, I try to bring as much people as we can to the show, and I like to bring cinephiles themselves because they kind of bring a different, aspect to this. But I also like bringing, casual fans. If you go and listen to the past Nerdcore episodes, we have a bunch of casual fans who just come in to talk. But then I also like to bring in cinephiles because they go into deeper interpretations of the film and stuff like that. I really do enjoy what you guys do. It's so much fun. I love the dynamic between all three of you. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, we try to be scholarly, but more often than not, it's like I would say it's like half scholarly and half really silly bits. But we try to keep on subject as much as possible.
Yeah, hey, I keep this running joke where I want to review Shrek 2 one of these days, so don't worry about me. I'm like we like to be silly here too.
I actually would love to review Shrek 2, so let me know if you ever actually want to do that.
Hey, I
But
think Shrek 2 is freaking awesome, especially Puss in Boots, man. Come on. Antonio Banderas as him? I love it.
it's the best.
Yeah. My school is making me take another a foreign language, even though I didn't have to take it with my other two universities, and I've been taking Spanish because well I'm fluent, so might as well get an easy A, right?
Right.
So then one of our questions on one of our activities was ¿quién hizo la letra de Puss in Boots in Shrek 2? And I said, oh, that one's easy. It's Antonio Banderas. Oh man,
Those Shrek skills just coming in handy out in the wild.
and then that scene with the gingerbread man and Viva la Vida Loca is playing in the back. Yeah, come on, guys, like it's just a great
Iconic.
movie.
I
Iconic.
think that anybody who can't admit that Shrek, or at least like the first three Shrek movies are good movies, is lying to themselves.
Very
So
much, very much. Well, this is not an episode where we're talking about Shrek, but hey, that's why I want to bring back Kayla one of these days. Love to have her on the main show too. But we will talk more about that. And right now we're gonna go ahead and head into this review. My co-host just kind of messaged me. He's like, "Hey man, I'm barely leaving work. I'm probably gonna just do his bit after we're done here, depending when my company gets here. But for now, we are going to review It Follows. Make sure if you have not watched It Follows to click off. We really, really, really do appreciate that click and that listen, but I will not be the one to spoil this movie for you guys. So please go and watch the movie, come back, listen to our review of it, and if it's the same as if your thoughts are the same as ours, awesome. If it's not, let us know what you did like. So in spoiler warning is effect in a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, Kayla, let's talk about this fantastic movie. All right. Let me introduce this baby. It
all
follows.
right, so
Do you want to introduce it?
it?
Do you want to introduce it?
No, go ahead. Sorry, my bad.
No, it's fine if you want to introduce it. It Follows is a 2014 film directed by David Robert Mitchell, and it was written by him as well. It stars Micah Monroe, Keir Glitch. Man, I did not expect to come in here.
Gilchrist.
Glichrist. Okay, yeah. Daniel Zovato, Jake Weary, Olivia Lucardi, and Lily Sepe. I was about to read that, Lil Sepe. Oh man. The score was done by Disaster Piece. Cinematography is done by Mike Guilakis. Yeah, I think so. I'm so bad at butchering these names. Oh man. It was produced by Northern Lights Films, Animal Kingdom, and 2 Films. It was distributed by Radius TWC. It was released on May 17, 2014 at Festival de Cannes. And then released in the United States on March 13, 2015. The movie is about an hour and 40 minutes, and its budget falls at $2 million and made $23.3 million at the box office. All right, that's it for the introduction. I think we can. I'm so sorry, Kayla. I'm gonna have to stop right now because my co-host is calling. Hold up.
Okay, that's fine.
All right, back from technical difficulties. Not technical difficulties, but good luck, Luis. Love you, man. You can do it, bro. You got this. So let's go back to this film. The good thing is that we were just introducing it, so we weren't deep into like a conversation. I want to kind of get our initial thoughts first, what we thought about it, like first 30 minutes. And
Awesome.
since you're the guest, I'm going to let you go first.
Okay, so the first time that I saw this movie, it was right after it premiered in the US, and I'm from Michigan where the movie was filmed, and I live pretty close to like actually the area where it was filmed. But anyway, so I went to this very small art theater to go see it. And the thing that I remember most from the first time that I saw it was being so stressed out the whole time.
Mhm.
Because for me, this is one of those movies that it has its jump scares, but the way that it's most effective in scaring you is in getting under your skin and making you just think about it over and over again. And it's, I don't know, it's such a beautiful movie that it kind of catches you off guard once it starts to get actually scary. It has this gorgeous color palette, and the lighting in this movie is, I took a note in my phone yesterday when I was rewatching it where I called it loving lighting, where it just seems to light all of these characters in such a loving and reverent way, almost like when you have Jay getting ready for her date, you kind of have this soft focus on her while she's kind of like preening in the mirror and deciding which lipstick to wear and all of this stuff. And the music is so effective in that it's just like, I don't know, I guess if you want to go straight opening scene, it's not as nice, and it kind of throws you right into it. But I don't know, it's just such, sorry, I'm blanking on words, but
no, it's okay.
It's one of those movies that just gets under your skin and you think about it forever and ever. I used to have a monthly recurring nightmare based on the premise of this film after seeing it. But yeah, that opening scene is definitely like one for the books as far as horror movie goes for me. It starts again, I guess the spoiler alert is in effect, but it starts with a young woman who is leaving her house and being chased by something invisible. And this is the first impression that we get in this movie that, I don't know, that these kids are kind of on their own, that like the adults can't step in and help them, or they're not willing to step in and help them. And you get this like insane blaring music piece from Disaster Piece that just immediately tosses you right into the very stressed out fray.
Yeah. So I mean, the first 30 minutes I'm going in, I'm watching this. First thing that stands out to me, like what stood out to you, as a filmmaker myself, I am in love with color grading. And when I saw the palette on this, I said, "Oh, this is beautiful. I know I'm in for a good work here." And I said, "Oh, this already has my attention." And it reminds me of Hereditary's palette as well, which made me think, I said, wait, did I catch the A24 logo in the beginning? Because I swear that this is the same company. And I had to go back, and I'm like, oh, wait, no, it's Dimensions. And I said, what the hell is going on here? I thought it was A24.
I feel like this is a movie that almost should have been an A24 movie given their current roster. But I think they were just a little bit behind the curve here. Yeah.
So, you mean, like you said, the woman ends up getting killed. And I'm there like, what the fuck? This whatever, this ghostish thing, it went hard on her. Like, she snapped her freaking leg and everything. And if you see the next kills, like, they're not the same, I don't know what the hell this ghost had with this one. It's like she owed her money or some shit. But, man, she really, like, that ghost really went for it with her.
I think it was just like, you tried to run.
You tried to
super
run.
hard, yeah.
So you try to run super hard. I'm going to make it like where you can never run, just break your freaking leg like that. So you find out that, so then after that, we go into this, we start to see a relationship between Jay and her boyfriend. What's her name? What's his name? Hugh, quote unquote Hugh. Find out that it's Jeff, actually. And things seem to be odd in that first time that they go out. Not the first time, but it's like they go to the movies, they play this little game and stuff. She says that she plays with her sister, and she says that he says the girl in the yellow dress thing, right? And she's like, oh, who's that? And then he gets all freaked out. There's where we start to see an instance of like, what the hell is going on here? Like, that's where it kind of it starts to really delve into like the whole like the whole idea of the movie, where it's like this thing that's following you that you can't see, but it completely goes in a 180 when we find out that the only way that you're able to see this is if it's passed through you through sex, which is a very, very different concept. I've never seen this type of concept in movies before, where actually something is sexually transmitted. Other than sexually transmitted diseases and that, but not a fucking a freaking
cursed demon,
cursed demon ghost monster. And that was what took me first. I said, wow, that is a really, really cool concept. And I just want to go ahead and put it out there. These long shots that they're using very back and showing the whole scope of the area that they're in, I love that. I love that use. What do you think about, the concept?
I think the concept is super cool. It's the one real quick note about those wide shots is it's such a great economy too, because you get so many like creepy tracking shots where you can make any extra suspect and you can make any person who just happens to be in the shot look really creepy just by the virtue of them walking through the frame. Yeah. But the concept itself is something that I don't enjoy it. I guess that's the wrong way to phrase it. But I think it's really refreshing and interesting because in horror movies, a lot you have this trope of especially women being punished for being sexually promiscuous. And I think the interesting thing about this movie is that nobody's really being punished per se. It's kind of just this awful curse that's passed from person to person. And it doesn't really care who you are or what you've done. It's just like shit luck, basically.
Yeah. And either they're punished for being promiscuous or they're over sexualized in these movies, especially if you see in the slasher genre.
Exactly.
Yeah. So so when you were talking about the frames and stuff, the next thing I wanted to bring up was the panels, when it pans over, and especially those sharp turns when he has her on the strap to the wheelchair. That was even though that shaky cam usually gets me like really nauseous after a while, but that one I was just like glued to the screen. I said, "Wow, that is beautifully shot." So then you find out, he has sex with her, and you think everything's going well. She's talking about how she always dreamed about being with a guy, and like that fairy tale, like kind of 90s dream of like holding hands in his car and stuff like that, right?
And going up north, which is such a Michigan thing, by the way. Up north is literally anywhere where there's trees. It doesn't actually have to be north.
Yeah, I would have. They never really say where this is all happening, right?
So I don't think they ever explicitly say, but in the pool scene, you can see the Detroit swimming signs. And a lot of when they talk about later in the movie about how their parents won't let them go south of 8 Mile, it's because there are a lot of like suburban towns around Detroit, like Farmington, Troy, Southfield, like all of these places. That's kind of like they all intersect with 8 Mile. And then like once you get past that, that's into the city of Detroit, where obviously like white suburban parents don't want their kids to go because it's so dangerous, which it's not actually, by the way.
Yeah. So we find out that, okay, so then they have sex, and then dude just comes out of nowhere and fucking chloroforms her. I said, oh my God, this is not going well.
It's so upsetting too, because I don't know, she's so just like comfortable, and that's just like such a fear that I think any woman can relate to.
Yeah. And I said, no, please don't do this. And then we find out, no, that he didn't hurt her, but he's kind of preparing her for what's coming. And it's the entity that's going to be chasing her because it's this curse thing. And he passed it on to her by having sex. And the next parts are just her being tormented by this entity that keeps following her. But I have to address it first. The entity cannot run; it only walks. And at first I'm like, God damn, how far do they live from these places that this entity is able to get here pretty fast? But I mean, that's the beauty of the script, right? Whatever's written gets shot. So
right. I think that they do such a good job of setting up kind of the rules for this as well, because I think in the hands of a less skilled writer and director, it could turn into such like a schlocky, annoying movie. And I think they do such a good job of giving you just enough detail to be able to understand what's happening, but you're still able to suspend your disbelief and be like, okay, I feasibly believe that this could be happening within these parameters.
Yeah. And so, and another aspect, I mean, you brought it up, and that the adults do nothing to help them. And it's really interesting to see that the adults are nowhere to be seen in this film. And I think that is intentional, because it shows that this is very much a theme that's going to be through the lens of a young person, a young adult. And
Yeah.
I love that there's that strong connection and dynamic between all the friends there. Well, some of them are closer to each other because they're childhood friends. The sisters, obviously, the dynamic is really strong, and you can see it, and that's basically because of the performance. Two actors that can work well together is really cool. But when you can see a whole group of actors work together well, it's awesome. And I mean, I'll go back and say how I loved it before we were talking about this. Before we started recording, I told you how much I liked it, and I think that dynamic was so well done between the kids, and I can see it here with this group of kids, with this group of young adults, and the way that their dynamic just works so well. And I never wanted them to not be apart from each other in this whole movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that especially like this is a really great group that has a lot of good chemistry. And that's so crucial because I really don't think that this movie would work if they were, full on adults with jobs and stuff. I think that it's really key that they're still kind of on that weird precipice between childhood and adulthood because they just inherently trust and believe each other and decide that they're going to help Jay figure this out. They're not like, oh, you're crazy or you're losing it. As I like Greg does a little bit, but like her sister and her childhood friends immediately are just like, okay, whatever's happening, we believe you. We're going to fix it.
Yeah.
And like, not that adults are like horrible to each other, but I feel like there would be a lot more of like, are you sure? Like, I know that you've been through this horrible trauma. Like maybe you should just like go see a psychiatrist or like, it wouldn't be just this like, okay, let's get out of town. Kind of reaction.
I mean, it has to be a thing that that is followed through the eyes of young adults, especially. I'm going to be making a lot of references to it because I mean, if you look at that movie, it's the same way. The adults weren't going to believe them, but these kids can see it, and that's why they have to help each other. And that's why in this one, I think it was easier for the kids. I mean, for the young adults to kind of believe her. Because I think it would have definitely been harder for the adults to believe her and the parents, especially when the mom, we see her like literally in one shot of the movie. She says nothing.
Yeah. She's either cut out of the frame or passed out or I don't know, gossiping with her friends about her daughter, which is, I feel, really mean, honestly. I feel like it's just, this is a movie that's like, it reminds me of Charlie Brown almost, where all the adults like don't have faces and they kind of just like ma through the scenes if they happen to be in them.
So, I mean, you bring up a good idea, but like Greg kind of believes her to an extent. I don't think that Greg per se believes her. I think that Greg had a thing for her.
Mm-hmm. I think he wants to get in closer to her and he sees this as an opportunity to do that.
Yeah. Which sucks because the one who actually, cares and wants to help her is Paul. Which later we find out that Paul does help her to the end and they end up together. But Greg is like, okay, cool, I'll help you out. I'll lend you my car and shit. I'm jumping ahead, but Greg, has sex with her so that way he can see if the entity is gonna follow him. And I love how he was so persistent to help, and then when she takes the car, when the entity follows her to the beach, he's like, "Hey, that's my fucking car."
Yeah, I think that's a real revealing moment because I think anybody could see that she is clearly freaked out, and I think that his reticence to acknowledge what's actually happening in front of him is part of that too, where he's like, I don't know, I mean, they literally see her hair get pulled up on the beach and the chair breaks in midair and
scratches Paul.
Gunshots. There's just so many, I don't know, you literally at that point it doesn't become a question of do we believe her or not, it becomes a question of is Greg trying to just play it cool and pretend that he's not actually seeing things so that because he thinks he can beat it or because he thinks that it's not going to get him. I don't know.
Yeah. I think he just thought it wasn't going to get him. And then we find out when they all go back home. And Greg lives across the street, by the way. So, I think that was kind of a genius when to write the script, to write in there, to have them be across from each other so that way she can see if this is going to happen when it comes down to this moment. And first, she sees the entity as Greg going in, so she's like, what the hell? The entity breaks a window, gets in, so she has to go and kind of warn Greg. She is just completely scared, and I wouldn't I wouldn't put it past her. I mean, I'd be scared in the same situation if I'm seeing like some freaking demon walking into my friend's house, and I'm over here thinking that demon, when it's done with him, is gonna come for me. So she goes
Right.
up there, and this is one of my favorite shots too. Which, first of all, I don't know if it was intentional that when she goes into the freaking house and she falls down, I don't know if that was intentional, or if that was like, on accident and they left that in there. But I thought that was so funny how she just falls and rolls over. I said, what
She's
the?
trying so hard.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, I get it, like, you're scared and you're going through it, but I thought that was, I'm like, wow, okay, you kind of just fell down there. Which is usually, that's the horror movie trope, like when people are trying to run away, they usually like trip and fall on something. So I think maybe that was a call to that horror movie trope. So then,
Yeah, there are a lot of interesting like homages in this movie that like that, where it seems like they're definitely calling out the old guard of the genre.
yeah, and this next shot is the one that I love the most. Is where she's going up the stairs, and the camera is kind of now focusing on the mom now as the entity, and she is half naked, and it goes back to her, and then she keeps on knocking on the door, and then she turns to look at Jay, and she's like okay, and just turns around and just starts knocking on the door again. I thought that was well shot. I love hallway settings with these type of shots, so I thought that was genius. And Greg says the most unfunny thing, but somehow made me chuckle. He's like, what the fuck, mom? I'm like, oh. Like, well, that dude was probably sleeping, and to me, I don't know why it made me chuckle. It was like the most unfunny thing to do, but he's like, what the fuck, mom?
It's just so like he's just so clueless. Like, and it's so crazy because like she's in the house like screaming and trying to get his attention, and no dice, obviously.
She opens the door and she just leaps onto him and kills him. And
in a really horrible way, I might add.
Oh my god, horrible. Yeah. Makes the first death feel like, wow, okay, cool. You didn't have to go that hard. All right. So obviously he's dead. So as Jeff said, was that once he kills the last one, it goes to the one before that one. So Jay's the next one to either get killed or she has to pass it on. And at this point, Jay's just completely gone from it, but her friends are there to help her through it, and they come up with the idea, why don't we just try to kill this thing, which is sadly, that's I'm kind of jumping towards the end, but sadly that's just not how it works out. But yeah, they have the idea to electrocute it, right?
Yeah, and that's like for me, like the real fear of this movie is that like once you've had this thing passed on to you, you never know if you're going to be safe again, because you never know if the person that you passed it to is going to pass it and how many people it will get to before it gets to you. Like, it's just, there's really no way to ever be safe again once you have it.
Yeah. And I mean, we're definitely going to talk about that when we go to our interpretation towards the end. Let's just go ahead and keep trucking through the plot. So, now they're trying to electrocute it, and just Jay is completely like, just at this point, just so deep into this fear of it, and her friends, they can't see it, but they do this wonderful thing where they throw the freaking blanket over it, and that thing, now the entity takes shape of her father, and she was just really scared about that. I mean, that was like, to me, it was creepy. I was like, we've never got any word about the father, and now it's coming out and it's showing the father in this, and I said, wow, okay. Like, that's the only thing that I kind of, is my only gripe with the movie. We have no build up to why the father is a very fearful thing for her, and it kind of just puts it out there without any kind of build up towards it.
Yeah, I can never decide if it's meant to just be like, oh, it's your dad, that sucks, or if it's meant to be like their dad did something to them that would make it more scary. I feel that too. Yeah, it's a little bit of a gripe for me.
Yeah. I'm glad that you get it, because a lot of people like me, we just did a whole month on Kurosawa on the other podcast, and I'm over here saying some little minor gripes, and then my co-host is like, dude, I don't know how you can find these gripes. I didn't find them. So I'm glad you.
I think that it's important to keep a critical eye on things that you like.
Yeah.
Because it makes us sharper.
Yeah. So I'm glad that you that you agree with me here. So yeah, that buildup was kind of like, I don't know where this is coming from, and then the dad just starts throwing like a bunch of freaking TVs at her, and like, ow, one of them
She's in the
actually,
pool, by the way.
yeah, she's in the pool. She
We
cannot do
mentioned that
shit.
poor girl is in a pool with a cast on,
Yeah.
getting shit thrown at her.
Yeah, and sadly, none of them can electrocute her. Mainly because I'm pretty sure you have to connect the thing for it to be to electrocute her. Not.
Yeah, I think they threw the power back off once it started throwing
Okay.
things. Plus, it was thunderstorming. This is such a horrible plan, and it's again one of those things like only teenagers would come up with this and think it was going to work. It's like I think there's a quote from the director saying it's a horrible Scooby-Doo plan.
Oh, I love that. I mean, but I get it. I love that they go with the teenager plan because I mean, if this was a real thing, what else are teenagers gonna think? Okay, let's just try to do this wacky idea. No one's gonna think like, oh, let's just go ahead and just run over it with the car. This whole time, I was waiting for her to just to take the car and just plow the dude, plow the entity. And sadly, what she never did. But yeah, so it just keeps on throwing the TVs and stuff. And one of the friends gets wounded because Paul over here, she's pointing at the entity, and Paul's trying to shoot it, but one of the bullets ends up wounding one of the friends, and the other one, I believe, was a sister, is the one who throws the blanket over the entity. And
which is so smart.
Yeah, that was so smart, and it reveals the body, so Paul's able to put the gun to the entity's head, and it falls into the pool. But damn, this entity must be strong as hell because it's still able to grab her when she's trying to get out of the pool, and he's trying to shoot it, and then finally one of them just goes straight to the freaking head, and the entity kind of quote unquote dies, and she's able to get out and. Everything kind of goes to a happy ending, and her and Paul get together, they have sex, and then Paul doesn't see the entity, so that must mean that the curse is gone and it's dead. But well, her friend is getting treated, and she says this dialogue that I really wanted to bring up. I don't think it's on here on IMDb. I need to pick it up. But what do you think about the last act?
Well, I don't think it's a happy ending, I will say. Yeah. I think that the circumstances in which they get together are obviously not ideal. And I think it's a little bit of, for Paul, like a be careful what you wish for kind of scenario. But I don't know. I'm torn. The last shot of this movie is them walking hand in hand through Halloween decorations, and you can see somebody following them in the background. And so I don't know. I think it's possible that they just kind of made like a devil's deal to both be able to see it so that they could keep running from it forever and not pass it on. Because I know that, I don't know, Jay has reservations about passing it on because, I mean, it's a horrible fate to bestow on somebody. So I would hope that people would have some reservation about it. But yeah, I don't know. I don't interpret it so much as a happy ending as a super ambivalent one.
I mean, it's happier than what was going on in the beginning, so,
For sure, yeah. Nobody's got their leg torn off on the beach, at least.
Oh, my God, yeah. The only thing that I kind of, I was hoping, but that was going to be a very, cliche, kind of like Deus Ex Machina ending if they ended up moving out to, another continent. That would have been so much easier, because, who's going to let this walking entity get into the airport and stuff like that,
That's like I had a couple of friends who I recommended this to around the time that it came out, and I kept having them come back to me and be like, why didn't they just get on a plane? And I'm like, when you were 18, 19 years old, could you afford to just get on a plane and go somewhere? Because I'm 26 and I don't think I can just afford to get on a plane out of the blue and go somewhere.
Yeah, so I understood that, and that ending would have been more like Deus Ex Machina, like just out of nowhere you finally do this, nah. But the last shot is beautiful. I love how it's filmed and the palette and everything, and I think it just reinforces the idea that you can never really kill this. It just keeps on, coming after you.
I think it's also interesting to me that it's the only time in the movie when you can really figure out which season it is because all the Halloween decorations are up and you see the neighbors raking leaves and stuff. So that also to me means that I think maybe you could interpret it as kind of a it's all over, because the rest of the movie seems to be kind of suspended in this timeless, seasonless, arrested development kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh man, I really wanted to find this quote from that from when Yara was in the hospital, but I couldn't find it on IMDb, and I just found a copy of the script. So I'm going through pages and pages trying to find this quote because I really did like it. I think that's gonna help my interpretation of this movie.
I believe it's from in the beginning of the movie she mentions that she's reading The Idiot by Dostoevsky, so it might still be from that.
Yeah. Hold up. Okay, yeah. So here it is. I'm gonna have to zoom this in because I cannot read this. I cannot see this. Yeah. All right. So Yara, she's sitting on the hospital. Yeah, sadly because Paul shot her. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. How are you gonna continue being friends with someone who just shot you? So.
I can't believe her parents let them in.
Yeah. So here's what Yara says. The most terrible agony may not be in the wounds themselves, but in knowing for certain that within an hour, then within 10 minutes, then within half a minute, now at this very instant, your soul will leave your body and you will no longer be a person. And that this is certain. The worst thing is that it is certain. I couldn't read that in the actual pacing of the performance, but we can go into the interpretation, and I think that this is my interpretation of it. In life, we cling to very much forms of euphoric. We've kind of cling to these euphoric aspects that give us this, this sort of happiness, so that way we can kind of, be distracted from the actual part of life that leads to death, to eventful death. I think this movie is about one of those euphoric moments, which is sex. Sex is kind of supposed to be euphoric in a sense. I mean, the way that society portrays it too is very much in that. And I think this especially says it. We do these things to kind of keep us away from that sheer agony, from thinking and these anxieties that we have that any moment we could be dead. And tomorrow we could be dead. The day after tomorrow we could be dead. And I think we try to fill in that void with this form of euphoric feelings. And the one aspect that's taken in this was sex, of course. So what did you think your I was about to say, what's your euphoric moment? What do you think is your interpretation of the movie?
That's super interesting. I've never thought of it that way before. My interpretation of this movie is kind of that it's an examination of trauma, in that we have these recurring motifs in the imagery of the film of parents not being there for you, of sex kind of turning into a traumatic experience when it turns out to not be what you wanted, or that the person was being duplicitous with you. And there's also there's references to the kids taking medication or possibly self-harming or having eating disorders. And I think that it's kind of about this fear of your own body after you have trauma, and how it's difficult to live inside of your skin after you've been through something that kind of redefines who you are as a person.
Yeah. I can see those instances of self-harm because when they're talking to Jeff, she's placing these leaves across her legs, which
That's
is
exactly the shot. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of referencing self-harming with cutting yourself.
Yeah.
So I see that. I think I like your interpretation too. I mean, I don't like the action of what is detailing, but I like your interpretation. But I mean, this is the fun thing about film and cinema. We have so many different interpretations of what these movies mean, and I think that's the whole beauty of it. I think this movie definitely gave me a different outlook into horror, and I got out of it with the same feeling I had after watching Hereditary. Well, not the same kind of, but the same thought process I had after Hereditary. I said, if all horror movies were like this, I would be the biggest horror fan.
And what's so funny is that there are so many that are, though. It's just, it's as with any film genre, it's a little bit of doing your research and
Yeah.
a little bit of like figuring out which parts of the genre that you like. But I would say that like a lot of the movies that have come out in the past couple of years are maybe not similar exactly in tone, but in this kind of like, I like to call it prestige horror almost, like where you have like elevated filmmaking and I don't know, just like a really like strong concept to follow through on.
Yeah. I'm gonna be trusting your recommendations a lot more, so I'm gonna be hoping for the third recommendation from you to get me into this horror genre. I mean, from horror, I really do enjoy Cronenberg's work. Who Carpenter. I love Carpenter. His work is just great. Hereditary was great. I'm so excited to see what Ari Aster's next work is, which I believe he's already working on.
Yeah, it's like a Scandinavian horror movie, I guess.
Ooh, I'm so ready for that. I mean, I loved her. I need to get Hereditary on Blu-ray because I need to rewatch that again. So
good.
So I mean, let's go ahead and go into the final verdict out of 10 here on the Nerdcore. We do the Nerd Chicano show and the Nerdcore in general. We do out of 10. Everybody mistakes it and they go for like the out of 5. I'm like, no, guys, we do out of 10.
You make it sound bad.
Nah, it's not bad. It's just that that's how we do it here with out of 10. We allow quarters, half, and 3/4. So do you want to go first?
Sure. I would like to say this movie is a solid 7.5 out of 10 for me.
All right, that's cool. That's lower than mine. I'm going to give It Follows on my first watch a 8.75 out of 10. I think the movie's concept is well designed. I love the writing. I love the motifs and everything about it. Technicality, it's very well shot. I just think at points it's kind of slow. And I think the build up to the dad really did bother me where I had to take off a little bit of points. But 8.75 out of 10. It is a really good watch. I recommend it to y'all. If you're still listening after this and you haven't watched it, what the hell are you doing? But this was a really, really good movie. I'm really happy that you recommended me it. And I think the best thing I'm gonna be taking out of this movie is the 100% the score. It reminds me of the score from The Shining a little bit because it's just so weird and just able to get under your skin and make you feel kind of icky.
The score is so good. I have had people where I've recommended this movie and they say like, oh, I don't really like horror movies. I'm not really into it. And I'll play them something from this and they're like, okay, well, I just have to see it now. Mm-hmm. It is it's a masterpiece score. I love it.
Yeah, I love it. So that is our review of It Follows. Next episode, Luis will tell y'all what his choice is for September. Not September. Hold on. No, November is a movie club month. Ooh, I'm over here making us go back in time. Yeah, so that will be next week. We will be reviewing Batman Ninja next week. So we're not going to do horror next week, but we will be talking about Batman Ninja, which is pretty fun. I haven't watched the movie, but Luis has. But we will talk about that and then tell y'all what is going to be shown on November. Remember, if you did enjoy this episode, go ahead and leave us a rating and review on your podcast app of choice. 5 stars is what we love, but hey, if you give us a 2, 1, just tell us what we need to do correct and what we got to do better, and we're open to this feedback. Remember, you can follow us on Twitter at the Nerdcore _, Instagram at the Nerdcore. Follow and like our page at the Nerdcore Pods. Thank you, Kayla. Thank you so much for being on here with us. You saved me from having to do this alone.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so much fun.
I'm looking forward to the inevitable Let the Right Films In and Nerdcore joint episode. I think that would be freaking awesome. I think we could that would be a huge panel. I think we would just have to have like a coin toss, and then whoever wins the coin toss is the team that picks the movie to review. So
I would love to do that. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I have to get you back on the show. We need to get you on the main show. You just let me know what movie you want to review, and we will book it in there to have you on the show.
Awesome. Ditto goes for you also, obviously.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. I'm always trying to appear on more podcasts, but I record every single day. So it's like, oh, Raul, you should be networking. But at the same time, dude, you have to record tonight. And I'm like, oh.
You got to build that brand. It's important.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, of course. You got to build it. It's a grind, whatever. So whatever
the bread. I don't know. What is the meme right now?
Yeah. Oh, let's get this bread. Yeah. Let's get this bread. Yeah, let's acquire this these carbohydrates or whatever. I don't know how to.
Yes.
All right. So thank you so much, Kayla. Where can they find you?
My Twitter is at Personal Maps, and my podcast Twitter is at LTRFI Pod.
All right. All right. Go and listen to her podcast. She is awesome. Love what they do over there. It's such a fun podcast, especially the intro music. I think the intro music is so fun. It's like the. Yeah.
Thank you. Tyler wrote that, actually, so I will pass it along to him. He'll be so happy.
Yeah, we got somebody on board to do our music because none of us are good with instruments at all. So we got somebody.
I think he did it on the computer, if that makes you feel a little bit better.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, the guy who did ours is a makes beats. He's a rapper, so he kind of gave us a beat for it. I was like, okay, cool, yeah, I can dig this. Thank you. Thank you for being here, and thank you guys for listening. As always, remember you can find this podcast on all podcast platforms, and I will see you next week when we review Batman Ninja. Adiós, mi gente. Viva México, viva Latinoamérica. Nos vemos.